The number of potential future popes continues to grow as 21 new names have been added to the Catholic Church's most exclusive club.
Two voices, one church, and a debate that could define its future. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle and Pope Francis are not just exchanging words. They're presenting two visions for Catholicism in a rapidly changing world. What started as a routine meeting has spiraled into a dramatic confrontation over faith, tradition, and reform. Are we witnessing a historic moment of unity or the deepening of a divide? Is this the moment where the Church chooses between tradition and transformation? The clash of visions. In the hallowed halls of the Vatican, an ideological confrontation is slowly changing the Catholic Church. On one side stands Pope Francis, a leader with a vision to reform the Church by opening its doors wider than ever before. On the other, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, whose steadfast commitment to tradition is deeply rooted in his Filipino heritage. Together, these two towering figures represent opposing paths for a global institution that touches the lives of more than 1 billion believers. The most important question of their debate is how the Church can honor its sacred traditions while embracing the demands of a rapidly changing world. This ideological divide, marked by differences over synodality, inclusivity, and the delicate balancing act between globalization and localization, has brought centuries-old tensions into sharp focus. Pope Francis has made synodality, a process of shared leadership and decision-making, a cornerstone of his papacy. Since initiating the Synod on Synodality in 2021, he has championed greater inclusion of lay voices, particularly women, and an emphasis on listening to the diverse perspectives within the Church. His reforms have aimed to create a more participatory structure, a departure from the hierarchical governance of the past. In contrast, Cardinal Tagle views synodality through a more pastoral lens. While he supports the idea of collective discernment, he places great importance on the human relationships at the heart of the Church. Tagle's approach suggests that without genuine connections between pastors and their congregations, synodality risks becoming a bureaucratic exercise rather than a transformative spiritual process. The clash extends to the Church's stance on inclusivity. Pope Francis's outreach to marginalized groups, including divorced Catholics and LGBTQ individuals, has been both celebrated and criticized. His encyclicals, such as Amoris Laetitia and Fratelli Tutti, challenge traditional boundaries, calling for a Church that welcomes all without judgment. Cardinal Tagle, however, embodies a more measured approach. While he shares the Pope's compassion for the excluded, his pastoral style reflects a deep reverence for traditional Catholic teachings. In his speeches, Tagle often highlights the enduring value of family, devotion, and faithfulness to Christ's teachings, particularly in his native Philippines, where grassroots spirituality plays a central role. This tension between reform and tradition is not new, but its intensity has reached unprecedented levels. With the release of Pope Francis's encyclical Dilexit Nos on October 2023, the Pope's vision for a Christ-centered and globally inclusive Church took center stage. The document reignited discussions about the balance between embracing modern values and preserving doctrinal integrity. Cardinal Tagle, while supportive of the encyclical's message of love and mercy, subtly emphasized the importance of local traditions and devotional practices. His reflections underscored the need for reforms that resonate with the unique spiritual identities of Catholic communities around the world. These differences have created an atmosphere of both anticipation and uncertainty within the Catholic Church. While some see Pope Francis's progressive reforms as a necessary evolution, others fear that moving too quickly could erode the Church's sacred foundations. Cardinal Tagle's traditionalist stance offers a counterbalance, urging caution and spiritual reflection as the Church navigates these turbulent waters. The stakes are high. The outcomes of this clash could define the Catholic Church's role in the 21st century, not just for its faithful, but for the world at large. The tension between these visions talks of the Church's profound responsibility to bridge the past and the future. To better understand this conflict, the personal journeys of Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle will reveal much about their contrasting visions. These two leaders, shaped by their unique backgrounds and callings, are not merely debating policies. They are redefining what it means to lead the Church in an era of unprecedented change. With this in mind, let's take a moment to reflect on the personal journeys of these two leaders. How have their unique experiences shaped their views on faith and reform? Their journeys hold the answers to understanding the deeper issues at play. The players behind the debate. The story of this monumental debate begins with two leaders whose journeys have shaped their perspectives on faith, leadership, and the Catholic Church's future. Pope Francis and Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle stand at the forefront of historical dialogue, their distinct paths embodying the tension between reform and tradition. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in 1936, Pope Francis rose from humble beginnings to become the first Jesuit to lead the Catholic Church. His early life, with a background in chemistry and a profound spiritual calling, gave him a unique perspective on faith and its intersection with the world. After entering the Society of Jesus in 1958, Bergoglio developed a deep appreciation for community-focused ministry. Ordained in 1969, his pastoral work brought him into direct contact with the struggles of ordinary people, shaping his vision for a church that serves the poor and marginalized. Elected as the 266th Pope in 2013, Francis embraced his role with a spirit of reform. His emphasis on inclusivity, global outreach, and environmental stewardship has redefined the papacy for the 21st century. Documents like Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti exemplify his commitment to addressing pressing global challenges while fostering a church that listens to the voices of all its members. Francis's leadership style is characterized by humility and boldness. From choosing the name Francis to signify solidarity with the poor to advocating for a more synodal and participatory church, his actions often challenge long-held norms. This approach has earned him widespread admiration and, at times, resistance from those who fear his reforms might move the church away from its traditional roots. On the other side of this dialogue stands Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a figure whose spiritual leadership is deeply rooted in Filipino culture and tradition. Born in 1957 in Manila, Tagle's journey through the Catholic Church has been equally remarkable, marked by academic excellence and pastoral sensitivity. Ordained in 1982, Tagle quickly emerged as a thoughtful theologian and compassionate pastor. His studies at the Catholic University of America, where he earned a doctorate in sacred theology in 1991, focused on the Second Vatican Council's concept of episcopal collegiality. This academic foundation would later inform his nuanced views on synodality and church governance. Appointed as Archbishop of Manila in 2011 and elevated to Cardinal in 2012, Tagle became a beloved figure within the Philippines and beyond. His emphasis on grassroots spirituality, family devotion, and solidarity with the poor reflects his belief in the transformative power of personal relationships within faith communities. Tagle's influence extends globally through his role as president of Caritas Internationalis, a network of Catholic charities addressing poverty, migration, and climate change. Yet despite his global platform, he remains deeply connected to his Filipino roots, often highlighting the importance of traditional practices like the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. While Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle share a commitment to serving the Church and its people, their approaches reveal key differences in emphasis and strategy. Francis's global perspective drives his push for inclusivity and structural reform. His focus on synodality seeks to create a more participatory church where lay voices and marginalized groups are integral to decision-making. His public gestures, washing the feet of prisoners and opening holy doors in prisons, underscore his belief in a church that goes to the peripheries. Tagle's leadership, meanwhile, centers on preserving the richness of local traditions and fostering personal connections. His pastoral style reflects a belief that true reform begins with the heart, guided by devotion and humility. While he supports many of Francis's initiatives, Tagle often emphasizes the importance of balancing reform with respect for cultural and spiritual heritage. These differences are not merely stylistic, but reflect broader questions about the Church's identity. Should it prioritize global inclusivity or the preservation of local traditions? How can it balance bold reforms with doctrinal continuity? Despite their differences, Francis and Tagle share a common vision: to guide the Catholic Church through an era of profound change while staying true to its mission of love and service. Their dialogue is not a battle but a collaboration, one that invites the faithful to consider what the Church can and should be. If their visions share so much common ground, What exactly has ignited this ongoing clash? What sparked the heated debate? The stage for the theological clash between Pope Francis and Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle was set in the summer of 2023, when 5 conservative cardinals submitted a series of questions known as dubia to the Vatican. These questions, focused on some of the Church's most sensitive issues, challenged the boundaries of traditional doctrine and brought underlying tensions to the forefront. The dubia, submitted on July 2023, tackled 5 core issues: the reinterpretation of divine revelation, the blessing of same-sex unions, the role of synodality, the possibility of women's ordination, and the necessity of repentance for sacramental absolution. The cardinals raised their concerns with precision, drawing on established teachings from the Second Vatican Council, De Irae Verbum, and earlier doctrinal texts. These questions were not merely academic. They reflected a growing unease among traditionalist factions within the Church, who feared that rapid reforms could undermine long-standing teachings. The dubia demanded a response, and Pope Francis did not shy away from the challenge. In a detailed letter dated July 11, 2023, Pope Francis addressed each question with characteristic candor, offering responses that expanded theological interpretation while maintaining a pastoral focus. Regarding the reinterpretation of divine revelation, Pope Francis acknowledged that while revelation itself is immutable, the Church must continually grow in its understanding of this divine truth. He explained that cultural shifts can inspire a deeper exploration of revelation's richness, leading to better expressions of past teachings. Francis cited historical examples, such as the Church's evolving stance on slavery, to illustrate how certain interpretations of Scripture and tradition have adapted over time without altering the essence of the faith. On the question of same-sex unions, the Pope reaffirmed that marriage, as an exclusive and indissoluble union between a man and a woman, remains central to Catholic teaching. However, he also emphasized the importance of pastoral charity, urging the Church to discern whether certain blessings, while not equating to marriage, could still be expressions of God's love and support for individuals seeking to live better lives. Francis's responses to synodality reflected his vision of the Church as a missionary communion, where all voices, not just those of the hierarchy, have a place. He rejected the idea of imposing a singular synodal methodology, but affirmed synodality as an essential dimension of the Church's life. The Pope's nuanced answers revealed his willingness to engage with difficult questions, while challenging traditionalists to embrace a more dynamic understanding of doctrine. Cardinal Tagle, while deeply respectful of Pope Francis's leadership, offered a measured critique of some aspects of the responses. His perspective, rooted in traditional pastoral care, focused on ensuring that reforms remain grounded in the spiritual and cultural realities of Catholic communities. Tagle supported the Pope's call for a deeper understanding of revelation, but stressed the importance of avoiding interpretations that could alienate the faithful, particularly in regions where traditional values hold significant sway. His reflections highlighted the need for a balance between doctrinal continuity and pastoral innovation. On the topic of same-sex unions, Tagle advocated for compassion and inclusivity while cautioning against actions that might be misconstrued as altering the Church's teachings on marriage. He emphasized that blessings should uphold the integrity of Catholic doctrine while responding sensitively to individual needs. Tagle's contributions underscored his commitment to preserving the Church's spiritual identity amid sweeping changes, offering a voice of balance in a time of transformation. The dubia and the Pope's responses illuminated the fault lines within the Church, creating a dialogue that reached far beyond the Vatican. This exchange not only set the stage for the Synod on synodality, but also deepened the contrast between Francis's global vision and Tagle's emphasis on tradition. As these debates take center stage, the perspectives of leaders like Tagle become increasingly significant. The Synod and the 2024 Vatican Summit provide key insights into how their differing visions are impacting the Church's direction. Tensions escalate. The October 2024 Vatican Summit, officially the Second Synod of Bishops, was a defining moment for the Catholic Church. Leaders from over 110 countries gathered to deliberate on issues that lay at the heart of its identity: synodality, women's roles, and inclusion. Behind closed doors, 368 members, including nearly 60 women, engaged in passionate discussions, reflecting the Church's ongoing struggle to reconcile its traditions with the evolving realities of the modern world. Pope Francis convened the summit as part of his vision for a synodal church, one that listens, discerns, and embraces the collective voice of its members. Yet the month-long gathering reveals stark divisions among participants. One of the most anticipated topics was the question of granting women more leadership roles within the Church. While advocates hoped the synod would call for women to serve as deacons, a role with historical precedent, the final document stopped short of making this recommendation. Instead, it declared that there is no reason or impediment that should prevent women from carrying out leadership roles in the Church, leaving the possibility of women deacons open for further study. Another focal point was the broader inclusion of lay Catholics in Church decision-making. The Synod's final text called for greater lay involvement in the selection of bishops, a move that signaled a shift towards decentralizing authority. It also apologized repeatedly for the pain caused by clergy abuse, acknowledging the Church's moral responsibility to address this ongoing crisis. Notably absent from the final document, however, was any direct mention of LGBTQ Catholics. While the text referred to those who feel excluded or judged because of their marital situation, identity, or sexuality, it offered no specific proposals for greater inclusion. This omission reflected the delicate balance the Church is attempting to strike between traditional teachings and the call for compassion and understanding. The summit also brought into sharp focus the contrasting visions of Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle. Francis, as the architect of the synodal process, has consistently advocated for structural reform and inclusivity. His approach reflects a global perspective, one that seeks to position the Church as a leader in addressing contemporary issues such as gender equality, environmental stewardship, and the plight of the marginalized. Cardinal Tagle, meanwhile, represents a voice deeply attuned to grassroots spirituality and the preservation of local traditions. His emphasis on family devotion and community-based faith practices resonates strongly in regions like the Philippines, integral to its community's day-to-day lives and cultural identity. While supportive of the Pope's vision, Tagle has cautioned against reforms that might alienate traditionalist Catholics or erode the Church's spiritual heritage. These differing approaches were evident in their perspectives on the role of women. Pope Francis, who has previously created commissions to study the possibility of ordaining women as deacons, continues to push for greater inclusion, albeit cautiously. Tagle, on the other hand, has consistently framed the conversation within the context of cultural sensitivities and the need to maintain doctrinal coherence. This tension between grassroots and global reform highlights the broader challenge facing the Church: how to navigate change without compromising its identity. Reverend James Martin, a Jesuit priest and advocate for LGBTQ inclusion, noted that while the text avoided specifics, the dialogue around these issues had become more open. For many, the absence of explicit mentions of LGBTQ Catholics highlighted the Church's reluctance to fully embrace this dialogue, despite the emotional testimonies shared during the previous synod. Traditionalist Catholics, meanwhile, viewed the synod's focus on synodality and leadership roles with apprehension. For them, the Church's strength lies in its adherence to timeless truths, and any perceived departure from this foundation is met with resistance. The October 2024 Vatican Summit left the Catholic Church at a crossroads, with both challenges and opportunities ahead. Pope Francis's decision to forgo issuing a personal document and instead present the Synod's text as a gift to the Church's 1.4 billion members underscored his commitment to collective discernment. The impact of these discussions is extremely affecting the 2025 Jubilee year and how the Church's leaders aim to bridge the divide between reform and tradition, transformation or tradition. As the Catholic Church stands on the threshold of the 2025 Jubilee year, the road ahead appears both promising and complex. This holy year, marked by the theme of hope, offers a profound opportunity for reconciliation and renewal within the Church. Against this backdrop, Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle continue to shape the conversation about the Church's future, reflecting two distinct yet complementary visions for its path forward. On Christmas Eve 2024, Pope Francis opened the Holy Door of St. Peter's Basilica, officially inaugurating the Jubilee Year of Hope. This symbolic gesture, steeped in centuries of tradition, marked the beginning of a pilgrimage meant to inspire Catholics worldwide. The Pope emphasized the profound significance of the Jubilee, calling it a time to rediscover faith, rekindle joy, and embrace transformation. In his homily, Francis reflected on the gospel message of the Christ child, declaring, "Hope is not dead, hope is alive, and it embraces our lives forever." His words, delivered at the threshold of the Holy Door, resonated with a global audience yearning for light amid the challenges of a divided world. The Jubilee's central theme of hope is more than a spiritual message. It is a call to action. The Pope encouraged the faithful to move beyond mediocrity and engage in spiritual renewal. His emphasis on being pilgrims of Christian hope invites Catholics to participate in a transformative journey, one that transcends personal faith and extends into societal change. While Pope Francis champions global reform, Cardinal Tagle remains a steadfast advocate for traditional spirituality, particularly the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This devotion, deeply rooted in Filipino culture, reflects Tagle's emphasis on personal transformation as the foundation of broader renewal. In his reflections on the Pope's encyclical Dilexit Nos, Tagle highlighted the centrality of the heart in shaping spiritual identity. He described the Sacred Heart as a source of divine love that offers hope to a broken world. For Tagle, the Jubilee's theme of hope aligns perfectly with this devotion, which calls for a heart-to-heart connection with Christ and others. Tagle's pastoral approach resonates deeply in communities where faith is intertwined with daily life. He has consistently urged Catholics to embrace humility, compassion, and grace, emphasizing that true transformation begins within. His focus on relationships between pastors and the faithful, within families, and among nations echoes his belief that missionary synodality must be rooted in love, not bureaucracy. Tagle's voice offers a balance to the structural reforms of Pope Francis, reminding the Church of the enduring value of local traditions and grassroots spirituality. His advocacy for the Sacred Heart devotion during the Jubilee highlights the importance of blending the global and the personal, ensuring that institutional changes do not overshadow individual faith journeys. As the Jubilee year unfolds, the contrasting yet complementary visions of Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle raise critical questions about the Church's future. Will the emphasis on inclusivity and structural reform bring about a unified global church? Or will it deepen the divisions between progressive and traditionalist factions? On one hand, Pope Francis's approach reflects the necessity of adapting to a changing world. His push for inclusivity, lay involvement, and reconciliation aims to make the Church a beacon of hope for those who feel excluded or marginalized. On the other, Cardinal Tagle's focus on spiritual depth and cultural sensitivity serves as a reminder that true reform must resonate with the faithful at every level. The Jubilee offers a unique opportunity to bridge these perspectives. As millions of pilgrims cross the holy doors, the Church can embody the spirit of unity, demonstrating that tradition and transformation are not mutually exclusive. By embracing the Sacred Heart's message of love and humility, alongside the call for structural reform, the Church can present a holistic vision for the future. The 2025 Jubilee is more than a moment in time. It is a crossroads for Catholicism. Pope Francis's bold gestures and Cardinal Tagle's heartfelt advocacy converge in a shared mission to inspire hope and renewal in the faithful. Together, their efforts reflect the Church's enduring capacity to evolve while remaining anchored in its spiritual heritage. The internal struggles within the Catholic Church have been simmering for years, but the dubia and the Cardinal's pointed questions have brought the tension to a boiling point. Are these debates a signal that the Church needs a leader like Cardinal Tagle to guide it forward? What's next for this centuries-old institution? Let us know your views and subscribe for more such updates.